A quiet revolution is happening across Africa, one that does not wait for ballot boxes or boardrooms. It happens on screens, in codes, and in the hearts of young people who believe leadership can be as immediate as a tweet and as enduring as a vision. Now, there are people who are actually waiting for the future. They are creating it, either bite by bite, post by post, protest by protest. But can this technology-driven uprising affect a social political and economic change in Africa? Or are African youths on the path of freedom and prosperity? Or is this digital era leading them to a more confused, trapped, and lethal end? You're welcome to Fafanua Africa. I am Lekan Onabanjo. We will get into the details in a bit. Across the continent, a digital awakening is unfolding, from Nigeria's NSAS movement to Kenya's Gen Z protests. Even Morocco stopped the high cost of living demonstrations, and youth-led actions in Cameroon, Ghana, Sudan, and Madagascar. Young Africans are not waiting for permission to lead. Armed with smartphones, creativity, and conviction, they're coding civic tech platforms, posting calls for justice and protesting corruption and, of course, exclusion. But the same digital spaces that amplify their voices also expose them to misinformation, online manipulation, and state surveillance, reshaping both activism and accountability in real time. So today's episode of Fafanua Africa will be examining how social media, technology, and digital innovation are transforming youth mobilization and leadership across Africa. It also spotlights a new class of tech-savvy change makers, that is, young Africans who are turning hashtags into civic apps, movements into policy influence, and online outrage into offline impact. So joining me today to discuss this is Elizabeth Ndefo, a UX UI designer, and she's currently in Lagos, but she joins us virtually. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for coming around.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here.
Of course. Pleasure. It's good to have you. So I also have Femi Adeyeye, convener, Fund Education Coalition. He joins me live in the studio. Femi, it's nice to have you join us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, you're welcome. So they usually say ladies first. So I'm just going to start with Elizabeth, and we'll just delve into the conversation. Now, you can call it rebellion, you can call it reinvention, or maybe a demand for change. But then, are you satisfied with how African youths have stood up to their governments in recent years?
Well, so far, they've shown courage, creativity, and urgency, and that is something to welcome. You know, satisfaction depends on the metric in raising awareness, shifting public disclosure, and so far they've been highly effective in achieving sustained institutional reform. You know, the record is actually mixed, and then the right response from stakeholders is to treat youth activism as a legitimate input into governance and invest in mechanisms that translate protest energy into political change.
Yeah. Okay, so fantastic. I think that's a very good way to start. Yes, and Femi, when you look at the fact that we have Africans in different parts of the country, and of course in Africa, who have taken to the streets to demand accountability, to demand good governance, and we've seen different responses from government. But then they usually say that the end justifies the means. Would you say that you are happy with the way that African youths are going about demanding a better society?
Yeah, I think the first way to look at it is to understand that digital, quote-unquote, digital activism is here with us already. It's not an unfolding discussion. It's already here with us. How then do we measure the metrics of how far we've been able to go with this activism is another discussion on its own. But I think your question directly is asking how much or how far, how well. So from different, in your introduction, you made mention of NSAS, which started from a tweet. You know, before we had the first protest, which was in 2017, which I led and some other young people. That was 2017 for 2020. There was a first protest of NSAS that some of us led. We got to that extent that we understood that there's a need to take this thing away from just tweeting. In fact, embarrassingly, a police PR at that time asked us to that there are 200 million Nigerians. So to end SARS is going to need 200 million tweets. He said it derisively. And we said, oh, these people are mocking us, but no problem. We would translate what we've been doing, this online mobilization, we would translate it to physical mobilization. And that was what happened with NSAS from 2017 to 2020. Have we been able to get to the El Dorado? No. But young people, have they been able to push the frontiers of democracy, civic space, to hold our grounds like citizens and say, see, you cannot criminalize protest. You cannot criminalize our voices, of accountability and things like that. Yes, young people have been doing that fantastically well. And very recently also look at the Free Nnamdi Kanu thing. It also started from online to what we're seeing right now. So the only thing young people must understand this time is that 1,000 tweets can actually not replace the 1,000 feet you put on ground. These are two things we must understand.
So that's reality.
So people should not just hide behind their keyboards. And because as good as social media is, as good as digital or tech activism is, it can also give you this sense of complacency, not to do much, to think, oh, if you tweet, that's just going to change the society. No, that's not going to happen. The people who chased the military did not have social media. And they were young people during their, their time. So now we have people who are only putting on Agbada and then we cannot do much. So it's a challenge to young people that I'm posting this time around, that we should not allow social media activism that we have now taken as a complacent way of voicing our, our discontent to take over what we should do on the streets. It can never, one cannot displace the other. They complement each other.
Okay, so Elizabeth, we look at it from Femi's angle now, digital influence. And I dare to ask, with social media, driving mobilization, conversations, actions and all, has the digital era been more of a blessing or a curse to Africa?
Yeah, on my end, I think it's both. I think social media dramatically lowers barrier in participation. It accelerates information flows and enables rapid coordination. It's a big blessing for inclusion and accountability, but it also magnifies misinformation, surveillance, and polarization. And then, these are serious causes unless mitigated through literacy, platform accountability, and proportionate regulation. Yeah. So these are I think it's both on my end. I think it's both.
Okay, so Femi, when you weigh it now, in terms of what the social media has been able to achieve, most especially through the use of the African youths, Elizabeth just talked about misinformation, polarization, but then it's been able to drive some sort of movement towards a particular goal. Yes. Would you say that's actually armed in terms of equipped African youths, or it has harmed in terms of dented their personality or their ambitions, where you look at how the movement and the activism have gone around for a couple of years now?
Okay, Elizabeth mentioned misinformation and things like that. Social media did not just come and then misinformation came. There has been misinformation since, forever. I heard a story of how an activist told us that even in Aso Rock at some point, that the newspaper that the military ruler at that time, I think it's a batch of Babangida, that he reads is different from what every other person is reading out there. So that's misinformation even at the highest form. So it is not, social media has not just come to, now make it at the forefront of our discussion, because this is, you need to be very careful. This is how government comes in and then they say, oh, we're trying to guard misinformation. And so for that reason, we would regulate social media like they do in some places. So, but if we're going to weigh the blessings and the curse, quote unquote, or let me say the lessons that we still need to learn, I don't know, I choose my word carefully. I don't want to use the word curse. Social media has been a blessing to young people. It has helped us to hold government accountable, like I mentioned earlier. There are different civic tech platforms now that are sincerely threatening the government. An example is budgets. Before, the budget of Nigeria used to be one voluminous book that nobody wants to read. But coders, people just sit and within minutes, they are able to decipher, break down the whole budget. And every young person can read it and understand, oh, this is where money is going to right now. So it's a big one. Tracker NG, it's also a very good platform. where you can track projects, and sincerely, it should be better to the point that as a young person in this country, you should be able to sit with your phone and Google, or just with a code, a USSD code, you can check the contractor who got the contract to build your roads and could not fix it. And you can get the phone number and things like that. Okay. So it must get to that point. So it has been a blessing, sincerely, and a lot still needs to be done. But on the curse part, it has helped people to be complacent, like I said. Okay, yeah. We just sit back and they will feel, oh, by one tweet, things are going to change. It's not going to happen. These people are also getting very comfortable with our tweets.
I just remembered at some point during the course of the last election where Nigerian youths were described as Twitter warriors.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they spend more time,
and that was the mockery. That was
online.
The mockery that police PRO said. Oh, we need 200 million tweets to hence us.
Well,
it's a mockery.
No problem. So we're still going to talk more as regards the advent of technology, how African youths are making do with it to vent their opinions and to demand a better standard of living, accountability, transparency from government. But then let's quickly go on our short break, and when we return, we will continue with the conversation. Don't go away. Of course, we know that technology has played critical roles in the couple of years down the line in different spheres of human endeavor, politics, health, economy, business, what have you, entertainment, sports, in so many areas. Technology has made life quite efficient. It has made accountability possible, the ability to measure, to have access to data, and of course, to be able to make informed decision, has made it possible through the advent of the digital era that we're in right now. But then we are beginning to see a new phase of African youth who are using the tools of technology to actually push civic conversations on several platforms. And I've been engaging some of my guests on the show Fafanua Africa this afternoon to look at the pros and cons, to look at the good sides, the bad sides of the influence of technology and how technology can be used to drive social change, most especially at this particular time in Africa's public space. And I've been talking to Elizabeth Ndefo, who is a UX, UI designer, and of course, Femi Adeyeye, co-convener, Fund Education Coalition. And I'm pleased to let you know that I'm joined in our studios by Opeyemi Ogunlami, who is the Take 8 Back coordinator. And of course, that is Koshofe, right? Yeah. You handle that particular branch. Thank you so much, Opeyemi, for joining us in our studios.
Thank you, and thanks for having me this afternoon.
Okay, so I'm just going to let you breathe a while. I understand what traffic can be, having to find your way down to the studio, and quickly take on Elizabeth before I come to you. Now, Elizabeth, we are looking at the advantages and disadvantages of social media and how Africans are making do with this technology to drive conversations and change. But then there are some activists or some people who have gained fame. They've, secured endorsement deals. They've even cashed out, if I could say, via protests and activism and all these demonstrations that we've seen all over. Now, are today's movements, when you critically look at it, would you say that today's movements have truly been about reforms? Have the focus been on reforms, or maybe just personal gains? Elizabeth, I can't hear you. You probably need to unmute, all right? We can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead now.
Yeah, so I believe most movements are driven by genuine grievances and public-spirited goals. Individual visibility and material benefits are secondary outcomes in many cases. And the presence of sponsorships or monetization does create incentives that then more or less distort priorities. And then these movements benefit from transparent funding, collective governance, and accountability mechanisms to keep the focus on reform.
Okay, now I come to you, Opeyemi. Let's look at, let's weigh the balance of how technology has come into play in our social political lives as African youths. Now, before you came in, there have been talks around technology fueling misinformation. We are even in the era of deep fakes, fake stories, being permeated all over the social media. But then we've seen technology being used to engineer, some sort of conscious awakening in the minds of African youths, drive conversations that put governments on their toes. But then if you are going to probably give your own evaluation of how African youths have been able to use the social spaces, how would you describe it? Has it been more of good than bad, or vice versa?
Well, from my perspective, this day, I know for sure that technology had actually improved our participation in governance and then in policy. I've also seen that there are a lot of things happening in our local communities that people are not actually aware of. They are killing, but social media and then technology is able to bring it out to limelight. And then there are a lot of things that should be killed that we've been able to bring out to the world to see. And then from my angle, example of this is about more than a month ago, Tomiland Bridge was obstructed. And then there are situations happening in our communities that politicians actually were killing down with their propaganda, making it fly across the air. If not for the use of technology, we would have not heard about the situation. But people obstructed the Tomiland Bridge, and then they brought it to the world with the use of technology. And then with the use of technology as well, we've been able to make government accountable and then to reveal to the world the real situations, because in the past, it is whatever the government says that is right. But today we see even to fact check, we see that even the government is also flying its own propaganda. And then the youths are able to search deep and bring it to limelight, revealing the truth about situation, thanks to technology.
Okay, so Femi, government has, for a couple of years now, government have actually responded to these agitation demonstrations via clampdowns, arrests. At some point, there was a ban on one of our popular social media apps and all that. Is this action, a portray of fear based on the collective strength of African youths? Or would you say that the Nigerian government is just trying to guard against the easy influence that technical tools provide?
No, if they are guiding against any technical influence, it is to guide it against their, exposing their own interests, which is to make sure that the people do not get education, they don't get what they need to get as dividends of democracy. He said something the other time about propaganda. You see, government is the biggest purveyor of fake news in this, in anywhere in the world. But we are in Nigeria, so we have to be specific. So they are not guarding against it because they really love the people, or they want to guard against misinformation and things like that. It is always the clampdown you find. So both the clampdown you see when we go for protests is what you're also seeing digitally, which is like the Twitter ban that was done by Buhari. And some of the conditions that the APC gave at that time was that, Twitter needs to bring their office to Nigeria. But I ask you today, where is the office of Twitter in Nigeria? But we have the Twitter back. But another thing they must understand is that the digital space is so wide that young people they are thinking beyond you. And look at what happened during that Twitter ban. Nigerians, bypassed the whole thing, and we are using VPN, and we bypassed it. So it's to tell you that if you ban any of these platforms, Nigerians will still use them. Young people will still use them. So governments anywhere in the world, especially that of Nigeria, they are always afraid of accountability, afraid of transparency, afraid of protests, to make it very clear. So we should expect more of these clampdowns, especially when some of the owners of these platforms are now in bed with governments anywhere in the world. You can see all these billionaires, their interest is actually how to make profit and not service to the people. So we should, as young people, also start creating our own alternative platforms. Because it's going to get to one day, our brother Elon Musk will just, if the deal is so good, he will shut it down. And we'll be looking for the platform to voice our discontent against government, and we will not find.
All right, so Elizabeth, you just listened to Femi now talking about the need for African youth to create alternative platforms. A while ago, you talked about misinformation and, of course, all the negative sides or the downsides of the use of technology in our social spaces. Then we can decide to have, alternatives, other kind of platforms. But then there have been calls for regulation so that when we see information come out from these platforms, we know that they are actually factual. Opeyemi talked about fact checkers now having to fact check details that are being propagated on the social media. Now, would you as an expert in this field, would you advocate for some sort of regulation, either with these set of platforms, social media platforms that we have, or if there are going to be alternatives that would be eventually created?
Yes, totally. I'd ask for a regulation, yeah. For activists, it's a liberation tool for organizing and storytelling. For states and for malicious actors, it can be a tool of control via surveillance. So there should be a balance, and that will be shaped by legal frameworks, platform governance, civic capacity, and digital literacy.
Okay, well, I like the fact that it's always, straight to the point. All right, okay, so, Opeyemi, I like to find out, fine, it should be regulated, all right? But then, would you also say that there's a need for caution on the part of social media users? We understand the frenzy with wanting to use the social media to paint some narratives, either to gain traction or to make people understand. But even at that, when we understand that there is some information that are propagandish, half truth, half lies, we're trying to guard against people not being wrongly influenced, but then we're still trying to drive social change. So should there be some sort of caution in the use?
Okay, if you talk of caution, then I was thinking, who would caution what? Because, and what you want to caution, to whose advantage? Because I've seen countries of the world make laws that are meant that in 200 years to come, generations to come will still benefit from. Now, what we see today in Nigeria is when people caution you, they caution you for their own benefits. Now, for example, something happened in my own community just yesterday. We heard that people from Lasura will be coming to the community because they demolished the area. They are coming to compensate people. People whose houses have been destroyed will be compensated 300,000, 500,000. People having properties. Now, I just fact-check online. Lasura wasn't saying anything about it. It's just the king in the community that is propagating because he's been in government before now. Now, I brought it out, the information I got that Lasura isn't even involved in this. Now, who would caution the people in authority against misinformation? Now, if we're saying caution, you caution people, who would talk to them that this thing is not real, but you are using the name of the Lagos government because you have influence and affiliation with them. So if you're talking of cautioning, I don't know from what angle, I don't even know who to say. Because how can the people caution the government? Well, the government can actually caution the people because they have the wherewithal, they have the tool at hand. So the only tool we have to put the government on its toe is the social media. Bring it out, expose the truth. If they feel you are doing too much, okay, get me arrested, let's go to court and let's reveal the truth in court. So cautioning, even the judiciary cannot even caution because they are also taking side. The judiciary is on the side of the government.
Allegedly taking sides.
Well, I have seen from my own angle, if I'm on hell, I will say allegedly, but from my own perspective to what I have seen, we've seen that no, judiciary is not even for the people again. So cautioning should be just and fair from anyone's side. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, Femi,
why is government so interested in regulation? You just want to regulate and regulate
it's to keep the sanity.
You see, if you place all the laws in Nigeria on this table, I say for a fact that 70 to 80% of those laws are for cautioning the people.
Yeah.
Caution everywhere, regulation. We have look the very recent law that we're also looking at the level of the Take It Back movement, the Cybercrime Act. Very voluminous. Everything is just caution. It's always targeted at press people, yourself. So I said this so that you can be afraid. Targeted at journalists, targeted at people who just want to call out the government. Because if the government sits somewhere and tell you that okay, after putting out a story as a journalist, and the government tells you that this story is actually false, at least you will first of all be arrested. before they start looking at, okay, is it true or it is not true? But this same government will push out fake figures, will tell you that they've taken 100 million people out of poverty, which, and we look at our surrounding, we look at our community, we do not find the people who have been taken out of poverty. And then we ask questions. But then who would then hold the government accountable for that fake news? Who will caution the government?
Okay, so I'll just put that question to Elizabeth. I'll be the one to answer that. So Elizabeth, so this is it now. Who should be the regulator? The one that regulates our social media platforms, regulates our laws, let's just say regulates the tech space that makes it impossible for both the government, of course, the governed, to misinform or misinfluence, if I could use that word. Elizabeth, can you hear me?
Sorry. Yeah, okay. I couldn't hear you. Can you come again, please?
Okay, so yes, I said we are at the bus stop where we are talking about who cautions who regulates what. And I'm asking, now, who should be the regulator, or how do we design the mechanism of regulating our social space so that both the government and the governed do not get to use the social media for false narratives?
I think the government should honestly regulate the media. Yeah.
So you think the government should regulate the media, but then we have a Femi and Opeyemi who do not even trust the government.
Yeah, because you know why? Because we are not UI UX designers.
Well,
we are activists. Do you get it? So you would expect that our perspective can actually differ. But the thing here is this. When we talk about regulation, like I said, there are numerous laws already in place to check for defamation, things like that. In fact, some activists are coming together to put up policy documents against, decriminalizing free speech. That if I say something wrong against you, just go to court and sue me. You don't have to involve the police. Yeah. But what the government wants is that they want to use the police, which is actually a state apparatus that they can use to cause fear. If you find anything offensive, and you just go to court, sue me in a civil suit, and not just, So when we talk about regulation, we need to be very careful so that we do not end up giving the government a tool to fight us. The world has moved beyond going after people. There are laws that are so backward, but those are the laws that now we want to bring back. Laws like sedition. We are now looking for a way, Decree 4 of Buhari, we are looking for a way to bring it back through another means, and we call it Cybercrime Act, and we just give it another name. When we're done with that, there was a time I went to the National Assembly when we went to shut down the social media bill. That was what they called it then. Now they transformed it, and now they call it Cybercrime Act. We understand all those things. It is actually targeted at people who are voicing, discontents to what is happening to the government. So we need to be very careful so that we do not hand over our liberty in the name of regulation.
Okay.
I was about to say that the social media is controlled already. We need to state that. And because there was a time I wanted to put something online. No, I put on Facebook. After about 1 hour, I got a response from Facebook that the post had been put down because it has elements of it has untrue elements in it, and it was put down. If you think it is real or right, you can follow this query. Yes, query. Then you do. So we've been controlled already.
But who then told Facebook that thing is actually fake?
Because Facebook actually had signed some things with the government.
Okay, well...
Yes, who told Facebook that it is fake?
Well, this disclaimers is coming from you guys. Let's ask an expert to even understand. Maybe there are back-end, how do we put it now, programs or codings. Okay. Maybe I can put it that way, Elizabeth. Help us understand. Of course, there could be some sort of arrangements or agreements or discussions at the background between maybe a government institution and service providers. But then I'd like to understand, are there back-end programs, codings, some sort of, let's just say codings, all right, that makes it impossible or that stifles the voice of dissent or the voice of reasoning on social media, that tries to manage and censor what someone can put up on these social media platforms?
Yes, 100%. I believe that there are, codings that one could use to censor some of the things that are put up on social media space. And that's because people abuse the social media space, People send lots of misinformation on the social media space, and then that could lead to so much chaos and riots. And then I don't think there's any disadvantage of doing that, That's disadvantage of putting the coding to block or limit what everyone can put up on social media. I think, yeah.
But don't you think that is a violation of a right to express oneself, Elizabeth?
To some extent, yes. To some extent, yes. But then we live in an era whereby people are bored, People always feel the need to tweet anything and everything, or post anything and everything. So I feel like putting a limit is a good measure on, social media.
Okay, thank you so much, Elizabeth. Now, Opeyemi, I need to ask. Now, we have the baby boomers era, we have the Generation X, the millennial era, and these sort of people think or see the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas as people who are myopic and rebellious, all right? Maybe that's why you see a government back end wanting to regulate the social media platforms, which of course is more or less like a recourse for them to express their opinion. Do you see this generation as people like that who are rebellious? They always like to question the norm and do whatever it is they like to the detriment of whoever or whatever?
Okay, as you were asking that question, I was asking myself that what is this generation doing that had not been done in the past?
But we did have technology in the past. I mean,
without the use of technology, is there any difference? People revolted against the government that was against their lives. Now, if this generation is coming up with it, with the inclusion of technology, there's no difference. The only difference is the channel through which we are doing this. So this generation, as far as I am concerned, cannot be seen as rebellious in any way or myopic. The only difference I still see is this generation has a lot of information at hand. Our fathers do not have a lot. Every month on my own email, I receive email from budget about the allocation given to my community, to my local government. I screenshot, I place everything on our WhatsApp, community WhatsApp group. I place on my Facebook, and I charge youth that, can you please question your local government chairman to give account of how this amount is being spent? In the past, our fathers never got these chances. So if you're telling me that I am questioning the authority, that could not be seen as being rebellious. The only thing I'm still saying from our own end is this government, our governments in Nigeria in the past and in the present, are not used to being questioned. Whatever they do, our fathers will accept. But because we have information, we've been to classes. I cannot imagine someone who was with me in the class, we went through the same course, becoming a local government chairman, and doing things contrary to the ethics and norms. And being someone I know, I can just question. And you cannot tell me, oh, you can question me because I am the superpower now. You're not the superpower. The power actually belongs to the people. What this generation is doing is reclaiming the power that our fathers had surrendered to the people in authority. We have the power. We can sack them even without election. We can sack any elected authority. We can sack them. Sack.
We see that happening in other African countries, but not in Nigeria yet. Yes. Why?
So it's not happening in Nigeria yet because a lot of mindsets have been shattered and destroyed. Nigerians never believe that somebody is in the house, in the next 2 or 6 months, the person is misbehaving. Let's recall. Let's get certain number of people in the community. Let's charge them. Let's put them on their toes. So if I am doing that, you can't question that. You can't say that I'm being rebellious. Now, in my community, a king wanted to sell land. We had to expose the king. No, the man is doing this for personal interest. I am not rebellious. I'm only exposing that, the king said it's government, and we are saying, no, it is the king wanting to use this land for personal interest. So if anybody is saying that I'm being rebellious, no, it's not. The king is meant to stand as the custodian and preserver of people's heritage, not talking as a local government chairman or the governor.
All right. Now, Femi,
Yeah.
I understand. Okay, so if we have a generation of Gen Zs
Yeah.
who are this reactive and responsive to online information and influence, and we continue with this trend, what do you think the future of Africa would be, most especially for the Gen Alphas? Do you think it will be encouraging? Do you think at the end of the day, this generation will be able to get the results they have been asking for via technology? Or you think at the end of the day it will be chaotic?
Yeah, what I want to say quickly is this. What's there not to be rebellious about? Is there something in Nigeria that one should not be rebellious about? Is it the state of our roads? Is it the state of healthcare? Is it the state of education? So when we use that word rebellious, let's use it with, you know, ideological clarity. In fact, we need to be more rebellious with the kind of information that the Gen Alpha, the Gen Z, and everybody, the kind of information we have with us, we should be having. I went to Ekiti State, was it last month, and I traveled by the road, and I said, see, this state should be protesting every day. There should be protests. If no state is protesting, Ekiti, the people in Ekiti should be protesting 365 days, 24/7. The roads are so bad. You know, so with the kind of information that we have today, in fact, we should be doing more than the activists of the old, who without information would travel from one point to another to hold meetings. The people who chased out the military, they were holding meetings in different places. They will have to travel by road, you know, the nuns of those days. But today we can sit here, connect with ourselves on Zoom, mobilize, yet we are not doing as much as those people. That shows that we are still not serious, you know, let's just put it very plainly. So the future is a more liberated future if we continue to match our online mobilization to what we have on ground. It's a liberated future. And to talk about the regulation part, I think government should be more interested in educating the people. When you educate the people, because it's a social investment in the people, you won't need to start regulating. People will know what is fake, and when they see it, they will know what is fake. They will know fake news, they will know original news when you educate them. But when people are not educated, that is when you want to use force. You want to, you know, regulate and continue to over-regulate. So the future is bright for Africa if we continue on this trend, become more rebellious, like I said, move away from just online mobilization to physical mobilization. The Nigerian revolution is long overdue. Sincerely, it is long overdue.
Okay, so Elizabeth, Femi is saying that there's a need for African youth to be more rebellious. And I don't know, there could be a clause in there because even the so-called rebellion, let me not say, you know, rebellion, so to speak, the so-called rebellion, one will need to understand what you are fighting for and how you are fighting for it. So I'd like to ask this question, Elizabeth. Now, there's what we call social engineering or social conditioning, where materials and conversations are shaped through algorithms to trigger emotions, most times against the government, whether for the good or whether for the right or the wrong reasons. But then when you look at it in your own way of evaluating things, is that what is happening in Africa? Some sort of social conditioning to incite African youths against their government?
Yes. I believe there's what we call amplification of algorithm and targeting of messages, you know. Intentionally or not, they could create emotionally driven narratives that influence public sentiment. You know, that doesn't mean all online mobilization is engineered, but the presence of tailored content, echo chambers, and reaction-driven algorithms increase the risk of emotionally charged campaigns that, you know, could bypass deliberation. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, well said. Now, okay, I mean, there have been talks around the need for stability, socio-political stability, because there's a lot of upheavals, a lot of fightings, a lot of demonstrations, killings, civil unrest in Africa. And you know that Africa cannot thrive in that kind of ecosystem. And now, I just want to be sure from your own path, don't you think that this could be, like during the NSAS that we heard of, you know, protests being hijacked, being infiltrated and hijacked. Now, don't you think there could be some non-state actors or foreign powers who may want to hijack these protests that have genuine intentions, you know, create some sort of propaganda, further engineer instability and make it impossible for Africa to thrive and progress. Because basically, if the government is not listening to the people and people are not equally listening to the government, there would be chaos. What do you think?
I was thinking, my child hasn't been taken care of in the home. And then he started complaining. And the next thing I just have to do is to slap the child. Neighbors are around watching the scenario. I do that today, do that tomorrow. I've done that yesterday. There's no how you are not given a opening for people to intervene. If you want to take care of your home, you take care of your home against external forces. If there's any hijack of any protest in Nigeria, nobody had hijacked protest apart from the people in government.
Exactly.
And then I've seen that for real. In fact, our brothers in the streets, NURTW, the boys in the streets, they don't just wake up to hijack protest. They are sent by the thugs in political offices. We call those ones thugs, but I call them the vulnerables. They hold them by their jugular to just create chaos. They are not the one creating chaos. We have seen that live on field. So coming to Nigeria or Africa as a whole, African leaders like Nigeria, I think Nigeria is even leading when it comes to a government that lives nonchalantly. You don't care about your people and you feel there would not be any other force from outside to pick up their interests. If there is a force from outside, like I said, if you're not taking care of your child and the other neighbors are saying it, they will join your child to do something for you. So if government does not want that to happen, you have to take care of the situation. You have to be responsive. Now we're talking of Nnamdi Kanu today. Did he just start up like that? No. Did Nnamdi Kanu just start and abusing government? No. He didn't just start in a day calling Nigeria a zoo country. No. They went to him, they destroyed him, they almost eliminated him. Now, these are things external forces will see that will make them feel, oh, we have interest in this young man. The way what he's saying is true. But we need to see a way to fight it. And then to cap it all, during the military era, is there any military takeover in Nigeria that does not come with external influence? No, there is none. Babangida could tell.
Yeah, but we don't want to go back to that era.
We are not going back there. We are talking about protests now. If the government isn't sensitive to the people's need, they are calling for external involvement. And I am not shying away from saying that the government hasn't done anything. And people outside in diaspora, imagine people in diaspora wanting to get involved. They already have their networks. And the networks will be saying that, oh, this government isn't taking care of you well. And then what can we do? If it is financing, they will do.
Okay, but this government, of course, I'm not an advocate of any administration, and I'm not on any divide, all right? I'm quite neutral. But this administration has called for dialogue with the youth.
Yeah. It's
tried to provide some social intervention, you know, in terms of funds for students, try as much as possible
to come in there?
Of course you come in. So I'm just because you said that the government has not really done anything.
Yeah.
But then if you were to look at it realistically, you probably would see a government that's trying to extend a hand of friendship to Nigerian youths in some way or the other. So are you saying that that is not enough?
A youth that hasn't gotten involved with the government would think that the dialogue is actually for the benefit of the populace. I have seen things in my community in the States that we wrote a letter to a particular government agency. When we got to the office, we dialogue about how we can make it better. We gave our own idea. And then the next thing we want to say is they've noticed the youth with the loudest voice. Okay, well, let's get this one out of them. If we empower this one personally, give him one office, he will keep quiet and the whole situation. That is the result of the calling for dialogue.
The more the dialogue, the more backwardness. The more dialogue. Immediately you see dialogue happening.
We've seen it.
The more backwardness.
We've seen such things play out. That's why Shore will tell you that I cannot have a meeting with people. Let's come to the street and talk about it. Shore will not go into closet to do that because he knows what we end up. I have also seen that happen in our various communities. Well, so who do I want to dialogue with? Government is throwing an open hand. They are throwing that open hand to see the loudest youth come into the meeting.
But then if the loudest youth has got integrity, then you would not
If you would not, Femi can talk about this. If you would not, your life is at risk.
Okay, okay, I understand. So I'll allow you respond, Femi, because we're actually out of time. But there's one question I need to ask before we do that. Now, earlier on, you talked about the fact that the social media is a major tool when it comes to driving certain conversations, right? But then we have some certain influencers, some certain celebrities who have a strong voice on social media. Can you actually trust those kind of people to propagate narratives that are people-centric? Because we're talking about integrity, we're talking about personal compromise, but then we have these people who have a strong voice, have strong followership, cult followership on social media platforms. Can you trust them?
We've not seen, there's no empirical data to it that these strong voice, the influencers that you're talking about, are people-centric. We've seen it many times. And that was what he was saying when he said, when government calls for dialogue, what they're trying to do is to look for the loudest voice. That's what they've been doing. Look at the National Youth Conference that they're trying to plan. It's an APC conference. Everybody knows that. In Lagos today, they are planning, there's an academy that they created, Latif Jack on the Academy. It's to create a set of young people who would be recruited into government to continue the bidding of government. It's as simple as that. So when you say influencers, they are also creating their own influencers. Yeah. But what I must tell our people is that those of us who are on the left side of things, as leftists, as activists, we must also create our own influencers to influence the right message, which is that this country is not working, is the truth. All these things you're talking about, like the social welfare and all of that, it's a ruse. Even the NEL fund, now they are complaining that the loan has been misappropriated. And we are not asking for loans. We are asking that you should fund education appropriately. Don't give people loans. Don't turn students into customers. You don't commercialize education. Education is a social good. It should be funded by government. So if you have money to fund education, and that has always been my question, I'll wrap it this way. If you actually have money to give me as a loan, why not use it to fund education directly? It's just like me having money to give to you, but I have to give it to a lending platform, Opay or Pampay, and you go and get it from them. Where's the logic in that? So they are not just serious. What they're trying to do is full-blown neoliberalism. You understand? Commercialize anything you can commercialize. Even where we are sitting now, the Tinubu government can commercialize it. In fact, if you breathe too much, they will tax you. Well, and that's the plan. Okay. So that is not how to build society.
Okay, so we are going to end with Elizabeth's comments on this. And I quickly want to find out from you, Elizabeth, in the era of, or in the space of information flying from different quarters, whether from celebrities, influencers, those who do not have integrity in check, how do we fact check and ensure that people are not misinformed? How do we ensure that data, information, details being shared to engineer some sort of change in our public spaces are actually true and factual? How do we do that?
Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, influencers can be powerful allies, but trust should be conditional. They can effectively amplify civic messages and mobilize audiences, but their incentives may vary. Now, with regards to fact-checking and, making sure everything that is put out there is not misinterpreted, I believe that it requires sustained investment and institutional support. Embedding fact-checking means funding local newsrooms, integrating verification models into schooling, supporting independent NGOs, and building public-private partnerships with platforms. And then over time, normalize verification practices that can shift civic norms. These are measures I believe would help.
Okay, well, some sort of sanity or some sort of regulation to ensure sanity. So I must say thank you so much. I'm Elizabeth Ndefo, UX UI designer, and of course Opeyemi Ogunlami, Take Feedback coordinator for Koshofe local government, if I could say. Thank you so much for coming around. And Femi Adeyeye, co-convener, Fund Education Coalition. It was nice talking to you guys. on the show this afternoon. Thank you so much. And so, contrary to opinions, African youth see themselves as a new generation of reformers and innovators, bridging activism and governance through technology. They might act erratic and disillusioned at times, but they believe the jinx has been broken, the veils have fallen, and they are here to demand better governance, accountability, equality, and better living standards. If only their leaders now can react more humanely, wisely, and rationally. And that's it on Fafanua Africa. Many thanks for being part of today's edition. I am Lekan Onabanjo.